أهلا وسهلا. كيف حالكم؟ أرجو أن تكونوا بخير. We have finally made it to sentences. Well done everyone. You have come a long way. Right. So today's lesson is the first one out of this Introduction to Sentences series, and the principal goal behind it is to introduce you to the main two types of Arabic sentences, which are the nominal sentence and the verbal one, and to also shed the light upon the nominal sentence structure, since it will be the starting point of our quest to mastering Arabic sentences. So what are we waiting for? Let's delve in, shall we? As indicated on the title, during this first lesson we are going to compare phrases, semi-sentences, and sentences. The reason why, as we get to the nominal sentence, which is the first type of Arabic sentences we are going to work with and try to get down pat, you'll realize that phrases and semi-sentences are one of its basic components. So mastering these ahead of time will definitely pave the path for what's coming. Are we agreed? I hope so. So without any further ado, let's begin with phrases. As previously mentioned, a phrase is a group of words that stands together as a single grammatical unit that doesn't convey a complete meaning on its own. Or to put it simply, the easiest way to define a phrase would be an incomplete sentence, since it is a compound that strengthens the sentence to become meaningful. We also said that there are several types of phrases in Arabic, and so far we have only introduced you to the adjectival phrase, since it has a fundamental importance in understanding the structure of Arabic sentences, more precisely, the nominal one. So if you have missed our adjective series, which explains adjectival phrases, we highly recommend pausing the video and check that series first. The link will appear right away on your screen. Back to the matter at hand. So there are several types of phrases in Arabic, and so far we have only studied the adjectival phrase. And the upcoming one will be the possessive phrase, also known as annexation or idafa, since it is also very productive in the Arabic language. So make sure you don't miss the lesson once uploaded. Let's now take a look at these examples of adjectival phrases. As you can tell from the translation, both of these are phrases because they don't convey a complete meaning on their own. That's number one. Number two, as already noted, an adjectival phrase always has an adjective acting as the tail in Arabic, as opposed to the English language in which the adjective acts as the head. And let's not forget to also remind you that the noun and the adjective describing it should be compatible in terms of gender, plurality, definiteness, and case ending. Now, in order to get the best outcome out of today's lesson, let's only keep an eye on the definiteness and the case ending. In these phrases, both noun and adjective declined in terms of definiteness and case ending in order to match each other. The definite noun took a definite adjective, and the indefinite noun took an indefinite adjective, and accordingly the case ending did. ضم ضم تنوين الضم تنوين الضم. So again, when it comes to adjectival phrases, definite nouns take definite adjectives, and indefinite nouns take indefinite adjectives. The reason why we are insisting on this particular rule is that as we move on to sentences shortly afterwards, it will not only no longer be valid, but the non-validation of this rule will help us identify the nominal sentence easily. You'll see what I'm talking about in a couple of minutes, since we have to stop by semi-sentences first before we see how this rule will cease to be valid. Right. To begin with, what is a semi-sentence? Well, the answer is incredibly simple. A semi-sentence is also a compound that doesn't convey a complete meaning on its own, which means that it is also a phrase. However, it is a specific type of phrases. Since every phrase is made up of a keyword which determines the grammatical nature of the unit and one or more optional words, a semi-sentence is nothing but a phrase that begins with either a preposition or an adverb. So our keywords for semi-sentences are prepositions and adverbs. And yes, that's why we have dedicated our previous series to introducing you to these two. As a result of which, all of last series' examples are semi-sentences. Do you remember them? Here they are. I will link the previous series up for an easier access, just in case you need it. Okay, now on to the so anticipated sentence. I would really appreciate if you pay extra attention. To begin with, let's define sentences. Just like semi-sentences and phrases, sentences are also compounds, or let's say nice little packages of words that come together. However, unlike the two previous compounds, sentences express complete thoughts, i.e., they do convey a complete meaning on their own, and they make it easy to understand ideas and learn information and, of course, communicate. Now, categorization-wise, we can categorize sentences based on different criteria, but the one we are going to adopt is nouns. In fact, Arabic sentences are most often categorized according to the placement of the noun within the sentence itself. This system yields only two major types of sentences: the nominal sentence and the verbal sentence. Given that an Arabic nominal sentence begins with a noun, a verbal sentence would be a sentence that begins with a verb. So again, depending on the nature of the first word, Arabic sentences are divided into nominal and verbal sentences. Couldn't be easier. Now let's move on to learning a couple of technical terms. Terminology-wise, we do call a sentence جملة, and a nominal sentence جملة اسمية. As for the verbal sentence, we do call it جملة فعلية. So again, جملة, جملة اسمية, and جملة فعلية. And please let me clarify a couple of things from the get-go. Arabic is not a strictly syntactic language, so there are exceptions to this first word rule that we will pick up on at the right time. For the time being, we will stick to the basics. That's on one hand. On the other hand, nominal sentences may include a verb after the noun or have an implied verb, but the decisive criteria here is the first word. I cannot stress this enough. If the first word is a noun, then it is a nominal sentence. If it is a verb, then it is a verbal sentence. I know that we didn't study verbs yet, but since we have a full lesson about identifying nouns easily, this classification won't be that difficult for you to understand, since all you will have to do is to spot the noun. I will link the just mentioned lesson about nouns identification on the right side of your screen as well. Very good. Having cleared up these important points, let's move on and take a look at these two examples before ending the lesson. And don't worry please, I know that the explanation given so far might seem shallow, but this is just the beginning. We still have 2 lessons to go in this series and everything will be clarified by the end of it. Right, please take a look at your screen and let's stop by the verbal sentence first. However, I'm not going to give details about it since we are going to postpone its analysis until we study verbs. Our example is نام الولد. Again, نام الولد. نام means slept. As you can see, since this sentence begins with a verb, it is a verbal one, and it seems only logical for you to ask, how can we recognize verbs? Well, just like nouns, verbs have specific signs that make them easily recognizable. And we will have a whole series about these signs at the right time, so no need to hasten. we need to get the nominal sentence down pat first to pave the path for the verbal one. Speaking of the nominal sentence, let's move on to its example. الولد صغير. Again, الولد صغير. It looks familiar, isn't it? You are absolutely right. It is nearly the same example given about the adjectival phrase earlier. What's the difference? The noun and the adjective here failed to agree in terms of definiteness, and that's completely normal since it is the sign indicating that we have a full sentence. In a simple noun-adjective sentence, the noun has to be definite and the adjective indefinite. That's the rule. Another important thing to note is that both parts preserve their nominative case. And perhaps the most striking thing here for an English speaker would be the absence of the verb to be in the Arabic version of the sentence. How come? Is it a typing mistake? Well, it's not. There is nothing wrong with this sentence, and the answer to all of these questions as well as more details will be given to you in our next lesson, the verb to be in the Arabic language, so make sure to stand by. That brings us to the end of today's lesson. شكرا على حسن استماعكم ومع السلامة.